Her silence, however, is not mere withdrawal. It is not retreat into isolation, nor a passive surrender to fate. It is a quiet defiance, a declaration of independence, an expression of the deepest inner self. There is a raw, untapped energy in the way she chooses to be silent. For silence is not the absence of power, but the very vehicle by which it is channeled. She is saying, "I do not need to speak, for I am already enough." In the presence of this silence, the world around her changes. It is as if the fabric of reality itself shudders, bending to her unspoken will. She does not need to shout or plead. Her silence speaks with an authority that commands attention. Men, who often measure their worth through action, through words, or through the validation they seek from others, are unnerved by this woman. The truth is, she is not seeking their approval, nor does she want to be understood in the conventional way. She is not interested in the surface-level exchanges that men often crave. What she seeks, instead, is something deeper, something far beyond words, a connection to her own inner essence, to the quiet wisdom that resides within her. In Jungian terms, this woman is in a state of individuation. She is in the process of becoming who she truly is, beyond the expectations, beyond the roles that society has tried to impose upon her. The more she embraces her silence, the more she steps into her own truth, shedding the false layers that have accumulated over the years. She is no longer bound by the external voices that seek to define her. Instead, she has cultivated a relationship with her own soul, an intimate dialogue that is richer than any external conversation could ever be. But what does this mean for a man who encounters her? To be in the presence of this kind of woman is to be faced with a mirror. She forces him to reflect on his own projections, on the ways in which he has projected his own insecurities, desires, and expectations onto her. Men, in their unconscious pursuit of control, often attempt to fit women into neat boxes, either as objects of desire or as reflections of their own ego. But the woman who has mastered her silence cannot be contained in these limited roles. She is, in essence, a reflection of the unknown. She is a woman who embodies mystery, who cannot be figured out, who exists beyond the grasp of the mind. The man is left in a state of yearning. He desires to understand her, to unravel her layers, but each time he reaches for her, she slips away. His attempts at control, at dominance, are rendered useless. The more he tries to analyze, the more he fails to grasp the truth. And it is in this failure, in this attempt to possess the unpossessable, that his own ego begins to unravel. Jung believed that the ego is the part of the psyche that identifies with the external world, the part of ourselves that seeks validation through status, success, and achievement. It is the mask we wear to engage with the world, but it is also the part that can lead us astray. For in the absence of reflection, the ego becomes inflated, seeking to control and dominate, instead of surrendering to the wisdom of the deeper self. A woman who understands the power of her silence forces a man to confront his own ego. She does not challenge him directly. She challenges him by refusing to play the game at all. She forces him to question why he needs to understand her, why he feels the need to break her silence. She is a constant reminder that the ego, in its pursuit of control, will always be at odds with the deeper truths of the soul. In this way, the woman who is silent becomes the catalyst for growth. She is the mirror that reflects the inner workings of the man's psyche, showing him the parts of himself that he has hidden away, his vulnerabilities, his insecurities, his unacknowledged desires. The silence she offers is not a weapon, but a means of self-discovery. For in her silence, he is given the opportunity to confront himself, to strip away the illusions he has built around his identity, and to see himself as he truly is. But not all men are ready for this confrontation. Many men, trapped in their own ego-driven narratives, will recoil from the silence. They will misunderstand it, perceive it as indifference, as rejection. But this is merely a reflection of their own fears. The woman who embraces silence is not rejecting them. She is rejecting the need for validation, for external approval. She is inviting them to step beyond the surface, beyond the familiar patterns of behavior, and into something far more profound. A place where true connection is not found in words, but in shared energy. Jung spoke of the anima, the feminine aspect of the unconscious that resides within every man. The anima is the gateway to his emotional and spiritual depth, and it is through this inner feminine that he can confront the truths about himself. The woman who embodies her silence is a living, breathing representation of the anima. She is not just a reflection of the man's desires. She is a doorway to his own soul, urging him to confront the parts of himself that he has long ignored. In this sense, her silence is not a passive retreat, but an active engagement with the deepest currents of the unconscious. It is in this space of silence that transformation occurs. It is in this silence that both man and woman are given the opportunity to shed the layers of their false selves, to confront the shadows that reside within, and to emerge into a place of greater self-awareness and authenticity. In this delicate dance of silence, the woman becomes the embodiment of the feminine principle, the eternal enigma that cannot be dissected, categorized, or understood in mere rational terms. She is a force of nature, flowing and constant, yet unpredictable. Her silence holds a power that transcends her physical presence. It is a subtle force, like the moon pulling the tides or the deep currents in the ocean, unseen but ever present. This power is felt, not analyzed, experienced, not explained. In the presence of such a woman, the man is forced to confront the most primal aspects of his own nature. He cannot control her with charm or wit, nor can he bend her to his will with promises or power. She does not need him, and this perhaps is the most terrifying thing of all. For in his desire to control, to possess, to understand, he is brought face to face with his own limitations. Her silence reveals to him the very things he has spent a lifetime avoiding: his own fears, insecurities, and vulnerabilities. This is where the true transformation begins, when the man realizes that his pursuit of the woman is not just a quest to win her, but an unconscious desire to conquer himself. For the woman who holds the power of silence does not merely exist as an object of his affection. She exists as a reflection of the inner world he has yet to fully explore. Her silence calls him to confront the parts of his soul that he has hidden away in shadow, the parts of him that long for connection but fear vulnerability. Jungian psychology teaches us that the unconscious is not merely a passive space, but an active force that shapes our perceptions, our actions, and our relationships. The woman who knows the power of her silence is not merely retreating from the world. She is engaging with the unconscious forces that drive both herself and the man in front of her. She is a mirror, a guide, a shadow figure who forces him to confront his own inner contradictions. She does not speak because she knows that words often obscure the truth. She does not act because she understands that action can sometimes be a distraction from the deeper forces at play. For a woman who has embraced her silence, the external world becomes irrelevant. She no longer needs to seek approval from the man, nor does she need to prove herself to him. She has transcended the need for external validation. Her silence is her declaration of independence, her acknowledgement that she is whole and complete in herself. This is the epitome of feminine empowerment, to be so deeply connected with oneself that the outside world becomes a mere reflection of one's inner state. In contrast, the man who is caught in the web of his own ego is constantly seeking to control, to dominate, to possess. He fears the unknown, the uncertainty, and the powerlessness that comes with truly seeing another person. In his attempts to decode her silence, he projects his own fears and desires onto her. But this projection, as Jung teaches, is not an act of seeing the other. It is an act of seeing only what is reflected in the self. The man who is unable to understand the power of a woman's silence is the man who has not yet understood himself. Jung often spoke of the need for integration, the process of bringing the unconscious into conscious awareness. The woman who remains silent offers the man an opportunity to integrate the disowned parts of his own psyche. Her silence is not a rejection, but an invitation to step beyond the ego, to let go of control, and to engage with the deeper, more authentic parts of himself. But not all men are ready to answer this call. Many will shy away from the discomfort that comes with facing their own vulnerabilities. They will retreat into their egos, clinging to the illusion of control, and miss the opportunity for growth. Yet for those who are willing to face the silence, to sit with the discomfort, the transformation can be profound. They will emerge from this encounter with a greater understanding of themselves, of their desires, and of the true nature of connection. This is the essence of the feminine archetype, the invitation to step into the unknown, to surrender the need for external validation, and to embrace the full spectrum of the self. The woman who understands the power of her silence is not afraid to be alone, for she knows that it is only in solitude that the deepest truths are revealed. Her silence is a reflection of her inner peace, her unwavering belief in her own worth. And in this peace, she becomes a force of creation. She does not chase, she attracts. She does not seek validation, she chooses. The man who is worthy of her will recognize this truth, and in doing so, he will be transformed. But the man who fails to see this power will forever be caught in the web of his own projections, unable to understand that the woman's silence is not an act of rejection, but of self-realization. Jung's concept of the anima, the feminine aspect within every man, speaks to this very process of integration. The woman who embraces her silence is not merely a woman to be understood, but a mirror to the man's own soul. She is the anima, the gateway to his deeper emotional and spiritual life. And in encountering her, the man is given the chance to confront his own unconscious, to break free from the confines of his ego, and to step into a new, more authentic version of himself. But this transformation can only happen when both the man and the woman are willing to embrace their inner truths, to step beyond the limitations of their egos, and to meet each other in the silence. For it is in this silence, in this space of uncertainty, that the deepest connections are made, not through words or actions, but through a shared understanding of the power that lies beyond the surface. And so, the silence becomes a sacred space between the two, a bridge not built on words, but on an unspoken understanding. This space holds within it the potential for transformation, for healing, and for growth. The woman who knows her silence does not fear what may arise in the stillness, for she has made peace with her own inner world. She does not need the validation of the outside world to feel whole. She is complete in herself, and it is in this completeness that her true power lies. For many men, this silence is an enigma. They long to decode it, to understand it, to pierce it with their words and actions. But the truth is, they cannot. This is not a mystery to be solved with logic or reason. It is a mystery to be felt, to be experienced. In the face of this mystery, they must let go of their need for control. They must surrender to the unknown, to the raw, unfiltered energy of the feminine. In this silence, the woman has created a space for herself that is free from external influence. She is not performing, not acting, not pretending. She is simply being. Her silence is a mirror, reflecting not just the man's ego, but his soul. It challenges him to confront the parts of himself that are uncomfortable, the parts that are often hidden away. It asks him to look beyond the surface and to see her, not as a projection of his desires, but as a living, breathing human being with her own dreams, her own fears, her own truth. Jung's exploration of the anima, the feminine aspect within the male psyche, reveals that this confrontation with the unconscious is not just about understanding the woman. It is about understanding himself. The woman who embodies her silence calls forth the man's own buried emotions, the desires and fears he has repressed in order to maintain his ego. She is the catalyst for his journey into the unconscious, into the depths of his own psyche. And yet, for those who are not ready to face this darkness, the silence becomes unbearable. It is a void that threatens to consume them, to strip away the protective layers of the ego that they have so carefully constructed. They may retreat, abandon the encounter, or seek someone who is more easily understood. But the woman who understands the power of her silence does not need to chase. She does not need to pursue. She is the embodiment of the feminine principle, magnetic, untouchable, and whole in herself. The man who is worthy of her will not try to possess her. He will not try to decode her, to fit her into a box. Instead, he will recognize that she is not a puzzle to be solved, but a being to be honored. He will understand that her silence is not an absence, but a presence. It is a space that holds within it the potential for deep connection, for shared understanding, and for mutual respect. In the presence of her silence, he will learn to listen, not just with his ears, but with his soul. This is where true intimacy begins, not in the words we speak, but in the silence we share. The woman who knows her worth does not need to speak to be understood. She does not need to act to be desired. Her presence alone is enough. It is this deep inner peace, this knowing of her own worth that makes her irresistibly attractive. It is the woman who is at peace with herself, who is not seeking validation, who holds the power of silence that draws men toward her. For in this silence, she becomes a mirror for the man's own soul. She forces him to confront the parts of himself that he has been avoiding, his fears, his insecurities, his desires. She challenges him to let go of his need for control and to embrace the unknown. And in doing so, she offers him the opportunity to break free from the confines of his own ego, to step into a new version of himself, one that is not bound by external validation, but one that is rooted in self-awareness and authenticity. The silence of the woman is not an absence. It is a presence. It is a space filled with power, with wisdom, with the depths of the unconscious. It is in this space that true transformation occurs, not just for the man who encounters it, but for the woman who has mastered it. For in her silence, she has found herself. She has learned to listen to her own soul, to honor her own truth, and to be at peace with who she is. And so, as the man stands in the presence of her silence, he is given a choice: to confront himself, to let go of the illusions he has built around his ego, and to embrace the deeper truths that lie beyond the surface. It is in this moment of confrontation, in the face of the woman's silence, that both man and woman can begin the journey of individuation, the journey of becoming who they truly are, beyond the projections of the ego, beyond the limitations of the external world. In the end, the woman who understands the power of her silence does not chase. She does not beg for attention or seek approval. She simply exists. And in her existence, she becomes a force of nature, a force that cannot be tamed, a force that cannot be understood, but one that must be respected. The man who is ready will see her, will understand her, and will meet her in the silence. And in that silence, they will both find freedom. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase. She chooses.